Every Saturday, this coming May, we uncover the hidden chapters of our past. We are exploring the colonized worlds of Haiti, the Dominican Republic, the Andean heights of Peru and Bolivia, and the vast plains of Argentina and Brazil. From nations that won their sovereignty to territories like Puerto Rico and French Guiana that were reshaped by empires. This is a story of survival, transformation, and the unbreakable spirit of the Americas. Before independence, a story of colonization, struggle, and resistance across the Americas. Before independence, the lands we now call the Americas, including Haiti, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Peru, Brazil, Cuba, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Uruguay, Panama, Guyana, Suriname, Belize, French Guiana, and Puerto Rico were not the places we know today. They were worlds caught between ancient civilizations and foreign empires. Worlds reshaped by force, fear, and fire. Long before the first European ship touched the shore, this land was alive with its own brilliance. The Maya charted the stars with mathematical precision. The Inca built cities in the clouds, connected by roads that stretched across mountains. The Taino, the Mapuche, the Guarani, the Nahua, each carried their own stories, their own gods, their own ways of life. But everything changed the moment the sails appeared on the horizon. The conquest did not arrive quietly. It came with steel, gunpowder, and a hunger that could not be satisfied. Empires crossed the ocean, claiming they brought faith and civilization. But behind their banners came disease, slavery, and the destruction of worlds that had existed for thousands of years. Cities burned, languages disappeared, sacred temples were torn down and replaced with stone churches, and millions of indigenous people were forced into labor, tribute, or death. But the darkness did not end there. As indigenous populations collapsed under violence and disease, the colonizers turned their eyes to Africa. Ships crossed the Atlantic carrying men, women, and children in chains, stolen from their homes, stripped of their names, forced into lives of unimaginable suffering. Sugar, gold, silver, coffee, and the wealth of the colonies was built on their backs. Across the Americas, societies became divided by caste, color, and power. At the top stood the Europeans. Below them, the criollos, people of European blood born in the New World. Below them, the mixed races. And at the bottom, indigenous and African peoples who carried the weight of the entire system. But even in the darkest moments, resistance never died. In the mountains, indigenous warriors fought back. The Mapuche in Chile, the Maya in Yucatan, the Quechua in the Andes. In the plantations, enslaved Africans rebelled, escaped, and formed free communities hidden deep in the forests and mountains. And in the cities, criollos began to question why a king across the ocean controlled their land, their wealth, and their future. The spark of rebellion grew slowly. Then, suddenly, whispers turned into meetings. Meetings turned into conspiracies. Conspiracies turned into uprisings. The colonies were boiling. The people were tired of chains, whether physical, political, or spiritual. And then, one by one, the revolutions began. In Mexico, a priest rang a bell that shook an empire. In Venezuela, a young criollo named Simón Bolívar vowed to free an entire continent or die trying. In the Caribbean, enslaved people rose up and proved that freedom could be won against impossible odds. In the Andes, indigenous leaders fought for the land that had been stolen from their ancestors. The struggle was long. It was bloody. It was filled with betrayal, sacrifice, and unimaginable courage. But slowly, painfully, the chains began to break. As, by the early 1800s, the old colonial order was collapsing. Empires that once seemed invincible were losing their grip, and the peoples of the Americas, indigenous, African, mixed, criollo, all carried the scars of centuries of oppression, but also the fire of resistance. Independence did not erase the past. It did not heal every wound, but it marked the moment when these nations began to write their own stories, stories born from suffering, shaped by struggle, and carried forward by the unbreakable spirit of their people. This is only the beginning, because every country has its own darkness, its own heroes, its own battles, its own truth. And we will tell them all, the darkest, most intense, most emotionally charged stories in the entire hemisphere. Subscribe for more untold histories.